In case I have not said clearly, this level of analysis, which is time related and related to discussing the mega behavior, would not have as an outcome certain cultures winning, a part of Far East countries, of course, which they have experienced equally war and various conflicts. They have all of the layers of conflicting nature within their history. They certainly withhold element of aggressiveness as well. I'm not going to be sold to any of the older cultures with this discussion. That's not the point. The point is that we have to establish where we are right now, and in some kind of summary of overall development, how things ended up to be and what will need to be highlighted. There's not going to be in result now declaring someone a winner just because we have established certain sparks of negative behavior. All of the old cultures have a variety of issues that they need to deal with. And today I will advise just one thing. Before to go and attempt to judge people, check upon the system. Because if you have system, cultural or political or both, that is going to, from little kids, recruit little kids, especially of mixed bloodlines, basically brainwash them, start controlling their minds. You can't blame them when they grow up. They have not failed. You have failed as a culture and as a state. You should never, ever forget that. You have failed as a state. You have failed as a culture. You have failed as a collective that is in power. You have failed today. And Croats are the ones that are Irish sitting in Croatia. Croatia was having concentration lager, the only in the world, especially about kids, for kids. Concentration lager only for kids. Whose kids? What do you think? Protocol Magellan is, I somehow came to this conclusion or noticed that actually we might talk here about protocols when it comes to our energies sliding from the sky. As of yesterday, I have been talking about temples. I think I would be closer to the actual fabric of the events if I actually talk about energetic protocol. As much as I am recognizing today the cultures, I am also somehow mapping them, or unavoidably you end up getting mapping of the cultures of the planet on some kind of 3D dimension, where today it has been clarified, unlike in 2D geographic map. Today we are doing a next level of charting or mapping the planet by understanding the cultures in terms of not just naming the tribes that have been living on the territories, but actually recognizing their energetic identity. So we are getting somehow now that latest mapping of the planet, that it is a mapping of cultural identities. That is how today it just clicked to me that this is Protocol Magellan, as he was the one charting the maps of Americas. Basically, it is about mapping something. I'm mapping here the identities, the cultural identities. In that context, today I have one big question that puzzles me for some time, and that is, despite the fact that certain people living on territory of Serbia, born on territory of Serbia and calling themselves Serbs, also genetically would be rather associated to Slovens or Central and other Central European categories of cultures, or in whatever else of brand they would be, of mixed breed somehow maybe, are very easy of aligning Serbia with Iran and with Muslims. I am not eager to, I am not sure that I can categorize Serbs in, or recognize Serbs in category of Muslims Iran protocol. Let us being reminded also that the entire Byzantine region has been made out of Sunnis and Shia, and the Arabs here would be more, as I understand now, more on the Sunni side, and as I understand, Muslims are not categorized in Arabs group of population. Now, to me, all of this sounds very much English, and I am not ready to give that much weight to the entire storytelling. But neither I'm going to from now on be so much driven by Sunni and Shia population, I mean categorization, because Muslim is English reference, and certainly coincidence with Shia, which goes in Serb language. Muslim goes in English language as well, English language and Serb language, but they're all speaking, I have impression, about some kind of third identity. People that live on land called Serbia do not happen as Muslims, do not happen as slim by a definition. We might talk about some kind of 10%, but these are neighboring territories. Even if we talk 20%, even if we talk 30%, 70% is not. In Serbia, 70% of population is not Muslim. That's not going to give you definition of Serbia. I can't see Serbia in category of Muslims. I'm sorry. But I can't see that's happening. I would see Serbia in category where you find, for example, Joan of Arc. When you find, for example, some kind of European groups of population, which are driving much more on normal protocol, normal human. I'm going to find Shia protocol rather in category of some kind of bioextremism, rather than something happening by a stamp and basically on the level of planetary identity by a stamp. It is too much to ask for Muslims of Iran. It is too much to ask for, or Muslims from England. It is too much to ask for. I can't admit Serbia in Muslim group of population. My verdict for today. There is a province in Spain called Catalonia, and there is coast of France, very much defined on the similar vibe, I have to notice. By noticing this city of French south coast, I have noticed a very much present Muslim approach to building cities. A similar approach you can find all over Italy or Italy, and that is narrow streets and rather tall buildings. In Greece, you don't have that. In Greece, you will notice cities are smaller. The attention is much more to the coastline, to some kind of much more freelance lifestyle. It is much more spread. There is not that much of a building intensity of making cities narrows. I mean, streets narrows and buildings tall. We don't have that in Greece. But I will notice in Spain is very much present. I mean, sorry, in France, French coast, indicates high percentage of Muslim presence there. Again, I'm going to say I can't enlist Serbia in that group of population. Of course, Serbs have been making quite a mixed breed with plenty of population on the planet, because obviously they are a very ancient tribe spread all over the entire prime continent, some kind of as Indians, obviously. But the fact is that they, because of that such prime spread out, would be much more on the level of Indians in America. There's much more normal bodies in all on different kind of dimensions, rather than to be strictly defined by this kind of tall, narrow protocol. I can't enlist Serbia in tall, narrow protocol because I see Serbia as much more larger dominion and much more larger identity, much more in the previous prime base, therefore. Accordingly, that cannot happen. Let's keep that in mind. I could have not aligned much with French coast. That being said, I'm going to recognize what I have recognized. It's not this is not coastline where a person of my kind would find myself holidaying. I'm going to notice also that is coastline where attention is to elite societies, yachting, things like that. Water must be polluted substantially. These coasts are not for regular people. They are for elite, for rich people, which also indicates where, in what category of population Muslims today are ranking. Unlike Serbia, that still is enlisted among the poorest countries of Europe, which is another confirmation that Muslims are not exactly Serbs. Serbs are obviously earlier, the one that Muslims continue to hunt, because obviously they found their dark hair suitable for merging without being too much noticed. Where is the fine line between two identities? Now, these are very important events, momentums, and I would like to ask you to pay attention to this. Accordingly, we are doing today, as we continue to do, charting of cultures on the planet Earth. If I'm going to further search for my identity on that coastline, since we are going to talk about Ark of Covenant, as long as since I am the author of my work, I would rather recognize Merovingians happening on that in that region, where I would rather enlist myself rather than with Muslims, obviously. This Nordic element that I bring is not exactly therefore that much dark either, and would indicate that we talk here about the line of Mary Magdalene indeed happening on the pathway towards Scotland. Therefore, the pathway would be Merovingians of France, via France. Not Muslims, but Merovingians. My verdict for today. Regretfully, I'm going to find Yugoslavia happening totally in some kind of different lineage, and that is lineage Irish Celts and Muslims of Middle East. Obviously, there is a reason why they needed each other. Irish Celts tend to be short and more oval because of eating too much of pork predominantly. While Muslims, because they're tall and slim, would offset with their body shape and would result in having the next generation of better shaped kids. So that is going to explain why Irish Celts have been that much aligning in all of the history with Muslims, or if you want to call them Shia as well, rather would be more specific. It's very unpractical that English used reference Muslim for all of the Muslim religion which is today occupying entire Middle East, while actually not all of the people in Middle East are slim. So we talk about some kind of takeover, obviously, by Muslim religion in a given historic time, and that can indicate or confirm how aggressive their approach was. I'm not sure, is it because I don't have impression that they're that much aggressive. There's nothing of aggressive. What was aggressive, obviously, the one that was riding the horses behind their back, and that would be obviously Celts. So it looked like it is Muslims, but actually would have been Celts. Equal as today, it looks like it is Israel bombarding the Palestinians, but actually it's Republican Americans. Because Republican Americans are Nazis. And Palestinians are Muslims. And because of that. And because Irish do not like Muslims. And if they say opposite, well, they're just pretending. And because they're pretending. That is how that goes. Since they are central Nazi platform in entire Central Europe. Because that's the nature of things. People tend to be comfortable with one that are like them. Will never be comfortable with some Muslims living in some completely different conditions altogether. Things do not work like that. It's too artificial. It's too unnatural. When something is that much unnatural, it's pretense. There was interest out there. And they would go even that far to talk about love. And when they speak about love, there's more like someone mocking love than talking about love. Or mocking marriage rather than talking about marriage. And I really don't know where Mary is going to be found, where Mary is going to find herself. But I would certainly say I prevail on the yellow side. I have decided, however, to recognize that as a completely different protocol than Celts. My Merovingian dynasty is prevailing much more on the blue side rather than on the green side, where Celts would be predominantly agricultural, or my blue Merovingians would be rather more blue, would be more aristocratic, I would say. That is in terms of would be more hierarchical, because there will be about there will need to be connection with Olymp and with amphitheaters, because it has to be that lineage. which exists as a parallel blonde line in our regions and in all Europe. There are two blonde lines. One is on the prevail on the green side, as Celts, and the other prevail on the blue side. That is my Merovingian dynasty there. Prevail on the blue side. Either we are going to call it Atlantis or we are going to call it Olymp. It is the same event. It might be that Olymp is more green and Atlantis is more blue. But I can't see how I can now split that location on something like that. It will need to be blue because clouds are blue, because philosophy is blue. What I do here is blue. Green is walking much more on the ground. Olymp cannot be green and be Olymp of the clouds. If it is about the clouds, then it's going to be blue. Accordingly, it's going to be Olymp will be, or it will need to be noticed as of blue clouds. That's being solved now. I have not studied history of Merovingians. I've heard a couple of documentaries on it. I can certainly notice. I would certainly notice them more in the category of Zeus is therefore water related rather than green agriculture related as it is Celts. Now we have been living 1,000 lives. There's enormous number of lives, and there was enough time to become green on these territories as much as blue. I have strong green line, but the prevalence is on the blue side. I enjoy and I appreciate so much nature, and I want to be so much outdoor, but I never have time for it. And I don't end being that much outdoor. Although I love, as anyone else, to submerge in the energy of the nature. But I always put that on second place. Now there are people that do not function on that note. That's what's going to make us different. Accordingly, that is how I'm going to appreciate to recognize my strong green side, that yet I'm not attending enough in my lifetime, regretfully. I have spoken beautifully about continental Europe, and about Celts I feel respectfully, equally, as a part of my genetic lineage for sure. But I have found enormous coldness here on the line Elizabeth and Mary, and that made my heart cold as well. Irish have problem with Mary for some reasons, but that I don't have time to be bothered that much with it. For me, that is a line I can't be bothered with it. I need to proceed with what I do here today, and that is Ireland, playing Protocol Magellan. Ireland, my verdict for today. I have asked my team to send you officially tickets for my amphitheater, Ireland and Croatia. Therefore, let's welcome Croatians and Ireland in our amphitheater of Olymp of the clouds. So of course I can understand why Serbs ended to be pushed in category of Muslims and downgraded for the size of their entire history, of earlier history. And that would be the ambition of Irish Celts to take over the region as a principal protocol. For what they have been wisely using Shia as disposables. As they continue to use them as disposables, in the way how they have been treating my husband and still treat him like that. They're using him against my Serbia identity, and then they're going to throw him as a garbage away because they're paying him just to survive and just to make fool out of him, as he depends on their pay slip for a month, as they have made me unemployable on permanent. That is Ireland defined. I'm sorry, I'm the first one that would like this story to sound in better terms, but it doesn't, because it has not happened on better terms, regretfully, Ireland. I'm not sure that I'm going to continue to, that I'm going to prolong them the status police. I have to degrade them from that position, or the expression would be mistrust them on that position. And from title of earls as well. Or maybe we can keep that one. I think we can keep that one. So now, when I add that Singidunum was Irish city and never stopped being the proxy of Irish and politics in the region, which is Celtic politics on the region of the region, it's going to be explainable why it was so easy Yugoslavia to happen 3 times as a regime over Serb population majorly, but nothing less over other local population, because the headquarters of Yugoslavia never was Serbia, but actually Ireland. And in process, Republican America. That is exactly where we are today. And everything that is of the mixed breed in the proximity of that center is therefore in category of rotten children, because that is how they treat their kids with Muslims, They treat them as not exactly theirs, and they use them and misuse them and treat them as disposables because they don't think of them as their kids. If I was not that much of a mother to my kids, who knows where my kids would be by now. But as I am today, the one walking the line, I believe that they are most of the time sober rather than drunk. Speaking of Irish. And therefore making less nonsense than they would otherwise. Nevertheless, let's notice the army of rotten children that these creatures continue to create on the surface of this beautiful planet. So my message to the planet, especially to young kids, to young people of Central Europe as well, be very careful who you are going to trust. Don't entrust anything that speaks Irish. These are people that have been living in their entire time on the edges of all of the European continent, and never stop to feel as outsiders. They tend to be very cruel, or very raw, or very prime, not exactly matching European nature, which tend to be much more happy, because Central Europe is a beautiful landscape. Coastlines of Europe, South Mediterranean coastlines, is beautiful landscape. So Europeans are renaissancely beautiful. When confronted with predatory of these Irish coastlines, they end up to be losers. Squashed here in the sandwich with calculative Muslims, or should I say sold out to Muslims, sold out Muslims to Irish Celts in this kind of 2 millenniums of game of prevalence and sharing Europe. Let's notice who is going to be trusted, European kids, and who cannot be trusted that much. When I mother kids, as I'm talking on personal levels here, on very personal level, as this is temple protocol, sainthood level. We talk about higher concentration of something. Here, that higher concentration will prevail over kids. So my kids would be kids of a mother. Accordingly, there is only one way how territories in proximity of my place of historic birth, my historic place of birth, can be how they can be employed today or recruited. That is as my bodyguard, only as my bodyguard. And no matter what they have been thinking yesterday about their presence, as of today, they have been therefore declared and certified accordingly. And I'm going to ask my team to send them uniforms of bodyguardians, as that is how Serbia and Macedonia from now on are going to be defined. Of course, Serbia, on top of the fact that I'm holding them on position of sainthood territory. And fatherland, Macedonia, motherland. I don't want to be disrespectful here. I'm talking about younger population and the one that are with me charting this reform, following this reform, and would not have a status. I want to give them that status as so they can be protected with the umbrella, by the umbrella of this work, by being recognized by their presence, as they would probably be there, to be labeled and stamped accordingly. A bodyguard certainly would indicate a presence in the proximity. I would maybe apostles, or to be better, maybe if I say, or yes, as a community, obviously. In any case scenario, what this is also going to suggest is that they will not have that much of a choice to be anything else, because this is configuration that is when it is dictated by the size of this of upper presences, which undoubtedly are recorded on these territories. You cannot afford someone else to meddle under your nose on territories. If these territories do have one of the highest temples in the history of humankind, it should be clear how that reflects on the overall configuration of the territories, which of course has not been understood like that, and it will need to be corrected now. Hierarchy is natural event in any protocol that has to do something with human. It is time to accept that as a natural protocol, and it is time to understand how one should be behaving in such circumstances. You can't have it both. The biggest history on the planet, but then we are playing community and some kind of landscape population. Landscape population when you have landscape territories. And landscape history. When your history is nothing of landscape, neither you can behave as a landscape that much yourself. That is how it is. Accordingly, I'm granting you protectionism. An appointment for that, we need a bit more specifics. Protectionism with clarification that we talk about hierarchy here. But to have there are some pro-Yugoslavian elements with a strong green Celtic influence, playing the best of the generation, but then ending to be rotten children in my generation as well, on the numbness of being followers their entire life. I'm not going to allow something like that to declare any kind of patronage over my kids. Let's be frankly honest about this. Find your place where it is, but to be mothering my kids, you will not dare to go that far. And so that has been said, Ireland today, accordingly. England continued to be puzzled on its own, as well as Britannia. And landing Ark of Covenant on that piece of land was nothing of wise. But probably the main reason would have been that Crusaders simply have stolen what they have seen at that point of time, obviously being nothing less but monarchical breed. I think that the entire religion drives on monarchical bloodline. That's undoubtable. That would be nothing less but basically movement of the bloodline as well, going towards England, because somehow I think Crusaders and England at the time emerging as its own protocol at some point of time surfaced the history and prevailed in driving the bloodlines, the monarchical bloodlines, as some kind of what I wouldn't call it circus, but I would call it at that time, at the point in all of the history would have been Renaissance, and that is in substance, we'll be talking about tribes moving or traveling as well. Maybe it was rather the tribes moving and traveling across the regions, as at that time that was very popular, obviously. And certain kind of tribes would have been that would withhold the upper vertical dimension, would end up basically as a moving empire, in the way how history actually has happened, very much as a walking empire. Of course, we don't talk one lifetime, we talk millenniums of years of very slow and gradual movements. That is more like your kids get married somewhere rather than you moving. And your kids would get married where is the main game of the time. So they would be walking. Monarchies have been walking in such time their kids would end up to get married somewhere else. And it continues to work like that. Our kids are making the next step from where we are. And ultimately, what we do end up walking or following the walk of our kids. And that at some point of time end up to be in category of rotten children, as how Americans, Westlands, is predominantly Irish Republican body, have decided to relate to this entire event, have received in return nothing more of a credentials today than what they have been doing and how they have been relating to the entire matter of history making. Today they found themselves again at the point of potato. What to make England in that context? Well, vassal state, hostage territory, as that is how they would to feel about the other side of that marriage, and that is Muslims. However, I have managed to catch something else there, and that is Serbia. To notice Serbia hiding in the center of all of it, as it was the fireplace in the center of the symbol of Yugoslavia. Surrounded by the yellow flames, there was a red center. That is how I'm going to notice Serbia in the entire construct of Britain as well. And lastly, about Shia population, I think that I found myself on their side from the very beginning. Certainly never being fond of idea of using Alexander or inventing Alexander again in order to attack Iran. I found that completely irrational, considering the fact that Iran is old country and require assistance to move forward as any other country in the world today. Also, we have been in Yugoslavia very much a mixed breed, created very good products, unlike John Travolta of Italy. Of course, I'm joking here, but I mean, we have in Yugoslavia, there was something local there, and that is our ancient culture and the way how we bring families forward. And that more serious approach in the way how we raise our families with an almost ancient spirit of dedication created very cultive breed. And I would never, from that kind of Yugoslavian standpoint of view, find any rationale in attacking Iran. In contrary, we find we have been also in times of non-aligned movement, certainly seeing very good movements happening in Middle East, across all of the Middle East, and I would not like to lose that. Certainly to perceive region from our perspective would never be, Yugoslavian perspective would never be same in the way how Americans have been perceiving Middle East, no matter how far someone wants to draw the line between Yugoslavia and America. In substance, Yugoslavia was still completely different protocol, and certainly was protocol that's neighboring Middle Eastern territories. So we will never have same alignment with Republican Party of America and where is Yugoslavia. Let's that, no matter who is the president. And Tito was, by the way, very much sincerely, positively, full heart approach, engaged in non-aligned movement. He saw that as some kind of prolonging spark to his imperial inclined, self-perceptive, self-stamping approach, and it was something that he saw as a challenge, and he threw himself fully into that project. Nothing of how Republicans or Americans would say Middle East. It will never be same how we, from Yugoslavia point of view, are going to see Middle East and how Americans are going to see Middle East. That's never going to be the same approach. Also in Macedonian compound, where there is some kind of much more Nazi-centered approach, that is happening. Maybe because Macedonians have a weaker resistance level when it comes to being penetrated. They have a more serious Muslim takeover above their heads, and also have experienced 500 years of Muslim Turkish occupation of territory, and very heartbreaking stories are emerging from that history, that time of history of Macedonian region. So we have bad experience with that Muslim behavior, but to the extent that Yugoslavia was emerging out of centered on Serbia still, and Serbia was of my kind, that is much more artisan in on the field rather than a movie star, much more of a director. Middle East become non-aligned movement rather than negative event. So let's keep that in mind. And I'm certainly driving that trajectory. That being said, I'm also certainly holding into some kind of grudge the fact that, if that is the word, if that they are overwhelmingly, increasingly present in Kosovo and and Bosnia and Albania, and it looks like overtake, looks as attack. Now, how far that's American scenario to destabilize and to control region, which of course it's another story, but the fact is that we experience that as Muslim interface, and it projects in people in the form of antagonism. So it will need, it is something that both sides will need to work on to reduce that presence to look as a takeover. And also there was a very beautiful story the other day of Muslim Serb that has accepted Muslim religion because there was a variety of pressures at the times for Orthodox to accept Muslim religion so they can obviously spread their powerful Muslim presence over the territories, which obviously not all that can be aligned to Celts. I will notice here. Still we talk about mixed breed that has been left in Middle East, and that mixed breed would hold all sorts of mixture with our much more stronger impact genetic presence. So no wonder it's going to reflect or to happen within certain kind of Muslim package as well, and return as a boomerang to you against your own possessions. Undoubtedly. So we have that phenomena of they were calling it coronavirus in a few years ago. Basically, it is that kind of genetic boomerang. I certainly experienced it very much in as a result of non-aligned movement as well, where there are certain Muslim elements in my city, even in my neighborhood, that have been following that kind of socialism approach, socialism protocol, very much playing some kind of management of the asset on our territories. And Muslims obviously have been playing the golf stick for our ancient balls. Always me being here, the ancient ball, I noticed a couple of these golf sticks in my life of Muslim alignment, and that's not going to bring good qualification to that entire protocol. But they certainly are not strong enough to dictate that game, and it's going to be work in progress. How far we will manage to change the universities, Western universities, from position where we found them, completely rotten. Fact is that this population, the Muslim population in general, exists in some kind of regime circumstances, and they are truly the basin of the entire planet. And Americans continue to build alliances surrounding the Central Plateau that continue to be a resource land where they continue to go and fish with their friends. So I'm going to find that America playing very low profile, very low level game. And that is why, from my perspective, I'm going to find it impossible to declare that as imperial protocol or as imperial currency for that matter. To the extent that there are that many people of our lineage living there, of course the currency is going to stay because it is in reference to people living on the territories. But imperial protocol is much more in reference to hierarchy, and I'm not sure that we have there a hierarchy properly established in that America. And the fact that they call themselves republic suits them well, so we can actually understand on better terms what exactly is going on there. By the way, in our languages, rep means tail. I don't have mercy for America at this stage. I think that because of the politics I have just explained that Americans are profoundly engaged into, and no, Jewish cannot be blamed for it, because in 2 millennia of history of that country they have been puppetry. It is your deep state, and it's no one else but you to deal with it. It is sitting somewhere in Ireland profoundly. It is sitting all of the America on the deep state protocols, and it is no one else but Americans to deal with it. Until then, we don't want to hear from that country that much. That is where we are. And we need to say this world now getting liberated from Americans, from American stupidity. And going out there to invite the rest of the planet on the round table that never was theirs, as it is of Serbia. As it was of Serbia, as it is of Serbia, as we speak.